Shane Ryan was there at Oakmont in outside of Pittsburgh. He joins us. He's been with us before, does a great job covering golf. Has there ever been a more unassuming champion at the U.S. Open?
Yeah, well, definitely not last year with Bryson. No, I think he might take the cake. I'm thinking back, and guys like Justin Rose have won, and he's kind of quiet, but he's not that humble when that. I think JJ Spaun is absolutely probably the most unassuming major champ we've ever had. He's great. He almost won the Players this year, and a lot of us were kind of hearing him speak a lot for the first time, and everybody kind of likes him. And he's a very down-to-earth guy, no pretension about him. And when he took that lead on Thursday, kind of people were like, well, that's a classic first-round leader.
Yeah,
he's probably not going to hang around. But based on what he did at the Players, I really thought. So I don't know if he's going to win, but I definitely think he's going to. He's not going to fold. That's for sure.
The course was vicious, Shane, and even more so after the rain on Sunday. How did he get through it? There were several guys who were playing really well that it destroyed them on Sunday.
It's kind of fun because I think he bogeyed something like 5 of his first 6 holes. And, the lesson I took away from it is, okay, everybody's going to melt down at Oakmont. The thing to do is melt down early and then surge late rather than holding steady early and melting down at the end, because he did, he had a little bit of bad luck, but he made a lot of bogeys. He started the day 3 under and, finished at 1 under, but I think he was as low as 1 over, 2 over at a certain point. So, he had his troubles just like everyone, but he hung tough. I really think that's what you can kind of congratulate him, the most on, is that there are a lot of players who have given up after that start. Not like walked off the course, but just spiritually, basically, they would have been defeated. Having dealt with this course for 54 holes to change, he hung tough, and he hung in there. Everybody else came back to him, and then all of a sudden, after all the suffering and everything, the golf god smiled on him, and for the last 2 holes, everything just went right. I was on 18 when he hit his approach in, and we saw that, well, he's been putting great all weekend, but that's a difficult 2-putt. And then Victor Hovland hits the ball a foot outside him, and we all just started laughing because it was like, when it's meant to be, it's meant to be, because now he's going to get a perfect read from the guy in front of him. It was just he held on. He held on long enough, and eventually he got rewarded for it.
Yeah, it was crazy. If you hit the ball in the fairway, you had a chance to score. Was the course set up? I know the USGA, they loved it, and then when it starts raining, et cetera. But a lot of people don't like to see players hitting the ball sideways. But again, it's about driving. That's a big deal to the USGA. Was the course in the long run, regardless of the weather, did they set it up the way you thought it would be?
Yeah, Oakmont's always infamous for having really thick rough, and things just took a turn. The weather really made a big difference, like you said, because we saw guys at 4 under after the first day. That's where Spaun was. There were a couple close behind him. I think the last 2 times at Oakmont, the winning score has been close to -6, -7, and so it definitely seemed like it was heading that direction. And then just slowly over time, everything went the other way. And it's look, these guys are so used to, the drivers are such weapons, and they're used to playing courses where if you're a little bit offline or you're just in the first part of the rough, it's not that big a deal. You can still easily make par, and you may even give yourself a chance for birdie. At Oakmont, it's different, where you're dead. You're playing for bogey the minute you're in that thick rough, and a lot of times, maybe once in a blue moon you can get a look at an actual approach shot, but most of the time you're just chipping out because that's the best you can do. And that's new for these guys. And, you look at it and go, well, maybe they should have hit iron off the tee, but the course is long enough that if you're hitting irons off the tee, you're still going to have ridiculously long approach shots, and you're not going to get birdies there either. And you can just as easily hit your approach shot into the rough, right? So you may as well hit driver. You got to try it, but, as we saw, and as you pointed out, they're kind of all over the place, especially when the weather hits, and especially when the nerves hit.
Shane, with Scotty Scheffler and his putting woes this weekend, do you think that's just a product of Oakmont, or do you think that maybe he's, after this unbelievable, ridiculous stretch, that he's just kind of coming back down to earth a little bit?
Yeah, he's had the best putting year I think he's ever had, which is why he's winning so much. Scotty, when he's not putting well, is still good enough to finish top 5 in tournaments, and when he does putt even average, he wins tournaments. So, yeah, maybe he was due for a tough week. I think, It felt like his irons weren't on. So when I was watching, it felt like every birdie putt he had was like 40 feet or something like that. And inevitably, you're going to three putt some of those. But yeah, he wasn't hitting the 15 footers. He wasn't even hitting the 8 footers for birdie that normally he's putting in there. So I think like just sort of, regression to the mean a little bit, or once in a while you're going to have an off week. But I think with Scotty, it is the kind of thing where if you could have told him, the best score is going to be 1 under this week, can you go beat that? He would have said, yeah, absolutely. I think he'll probably in hindsight look at this and go, man, I should have won that. So I should have found a way to win that tournament.
Was there relief that a live golfer did not win the U.S. Open like a year ago with Bryson, who is maybe as popular as a golfer is in the world?
I just don't think people really care anymore.
Okay.
Brooks Koepka won it the first year. He won the PGA, so that kind of broke the seal a little bit. We knew a live golfer can win. And then Bryson won last year. So at this point, we know live golfers can win. I don't think anybody would have flipped, right? I don't think it would have been that big a deal. I just don't think that really entered into it.
Honestly, that's good. I texted him back and forth with a few people watching, and you had Hatton, and of course, was it Ortiz that had an amazing tournament with what he was doing? So McIntyre, you spent a lot of time with him. In fact, that's your story. Even though JJ Spaun's the one that won the tournament, you were kind of watching him, and his reaction was great. Terrell Hatton's reaction was great. They were happy for him. This McIntyre guy, he is he's something else. He's really, really good and sometimes under the radar.
Yeah, very much so. He's physically not very imposing. He's kind of short, a little bit chubby or whatever, has a baby face, but he really is a tough guy and tough competitor. And I was kind of hanging around with the players coming in, and when he putted out on 18, he's 45 minutes to an hour ahead of the last groups, the leaders, but he's at +1. And at the same time that he finished, you had Hatton about to make double bogey, you had Burns about to make double bogey. All of a sudden, it was like, this guy's going to win. It looked really good. Adam Scott dropped off. So it was basically at a certain point, you go, okay, McNamara is here. He's done. The only guy now that can beat him is JJ Spaun, and we'll see what JJ does on the last 2 holes. But my thought as a journalist was, this is what an interesting situation for McIntyre to be done, and then you have to sit there for a half an hour or more and watch what happens. What is that like? What are those feelings like? What do you do? He talked to the media a little bit. He wandered around a little bit, talked to his agent, but just the tension of that, where everything's in the balance. And truly, he was a coin flip at that point, whether Spaun would beat him or not. And, I just thought, God, imagine that feeling when you're just sitting there waiting.
Can you try to explain just how wet, nasty, muddy, miserable it was when those couple of different times when that just came blowing through?
Yeah, it's classic East Coast rain where it's, when it comes, it really comes. And it was heavy as can be. You felt like in the media tent, hearing it hit the canvas, you felt like you're being bombarded. So it was super heavy. It took them, I think it was like about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes where play was suspended while they're trying to dry the course off. Right when they get back out, it comes down again. Last thing the USGA wants is a Monday finish, right? So they're trying to push to finish any way possible, as long as there's not standing water on the greens. But, you probably read it created situations where there were certain fairway shots which were full of water, and you couldn't really take relief because it was everywhere, right? So Sam Burns ran into that. Kind of everybody had a little bit of that, but it was nasty. And, you can't forget, these guys have just fought this course for 4 days. Not only are the conditions awful, but they're about as tired as you can be. They've been getting beat up by this course for 72 holes. So quite a test. You don't cross the finish line as much as you kind of stumble across it at Oakmont.
It's just gorgeous. Of course, what was the 5.5 inch, the rough, and at times it almost was British Open like a links course at times. But I love the views, the green, the different colors, and it's just gorgeous. Paul, did you have another one?
Will this be Phil Mickelson's last U.S. Open?
Yeah, it's really tough to say. Here's the thing, his exemption's up, and that's kind of, he said it is highly likely it's my last one. But, that just means, he could qualify again. He could choose to qualify, and it's possible he won't. But he can also get an exemption. And, that's kind of up to the USGA, what they do. Gun to head, it would be a really hard pick. I would say probably not. I think probably one way or another he gets in another one somehow. But it's not guaranteed. And, I followed him on Friday in his last holes. It looked like he was going to make the cut. I think he was at 3 over, and the cut was 7 over, and he ends up going +5 over his last 2 holes, and he ends up missing the cut. So I followed him and I wrote a story because it may be his last U.S. Open. Hard to guarantee that, but it definitely had the feeling of a sort of ending once it's there.
Rory fought back to make the cut and played well on Sunday, but Shane, he seems to be fried. And I know he's had this back and forth, and at times athletes have these whatever with the media. Where is he? Did the Masters, he had been working on that for a decade to get the Grand Slam. Where is he, in your opinion, mentally?
I think burned out is a great word for it. Yeah, I think he's kind of getting snippy with the media. I think he was annoyed by the driver scandal at the PGA. Now I put scandal in quotes because it was just
sure.
But just some strange decisions, like with the driver thing. Why not just come out and explain it to everybody? The story could have been over in 5 minutes, right? Same thing happened to Scotty. So they asked Scotty about it after, and he just gave a 2-second explanation. It was done. But he's making these strange decisions. He harbors a grudge against some of the media. It seems like. I think when you get to the bottom of it, and again, we're just seeing him for a little bit here, right? We're not seeing his daily life, his private life, or anything like that. But what it seems like to me is this guy got something he was working for forever, and the way he felt afterward was not what he expected. Right? I mean, I think that's not an uncommon human experience, right? You hear about it with Olympians all the time. Win a gold medal, and they're supposed to be overjoyed, but then they go, "Well, what do I do now? Right? Like, what's going to drive me now? Where does the meaning come from?" And I think there may be some of that because it's otherwise. I don't know how you explain the way he's behaved. I mean, the guy should be, on cloud 9. He should be kind of riding this wave, and instead he doesn't look happy. He looks kind of miserable to me.
Do you think that does that separate what we saw from Nicklaus, Tiger, and maybe 2 or 3 others that when they won something like that, it was like shark in bloody waters. They couldn't wait to win the next one. Where some, it does drain them a little bit.
I think so. I think this is evidence that Rory really put a lot on winning the career slam, winning another major, breaking that drought, where I would think if you asked Nicklaus or Tiger while they were playing, they probably didn't think about that stuff too much because what they had was this insatiable desire to win week after week after week, right? Like it's like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, when he won his 5th NBA championship, wasn't, okay, now I've won 5 and I've accomplished. No, every single time the guy wanted to play, he wanted to kill and he wanted to win because there's that internal fire. I think Rory was so goal-oriented that when he hit the goal, some of that fire went out in a way it didn't for the guys you were talking about with Nicklaus. And that's kind of the problem, I think, right now. He doesn't know what to do. So.
Yeah, it just seems like that, and he had to wait so long for that, too, which is hard to imagine. Yeah. Did you see the comment from Marty Fish, the tennis pro, by any chance? About
I don't think so, no.
Garrett, do you have that? Did I send that to you? Here, I'm going to read it to you. 2014, Marty Fish, I was at a tennis tour, played a few mini tour golf events to pass the time. I got paired with a young American player out of L.A., and the dude shot the easiest 65 on PGA West Stadium. I said to myself at the time, I got to make sure I remember this dude's name. That kid was JJ Spaun.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's just so cool, little stories like that. I mean, it's California kid, the way he talks, you can tell he's from California. He doesn't sound like a lot of other golfers. Very, very unassuming. I think people who didn't know Spaun would have expected that he would drop off the map after Thursday. He's cool. It's just a really cool story. And he's a cool guy. And it's just, look, I think a big part of this tournament was a little bit dull because of the way players were getting beat up. But I mean, what fireworks in the last 45 minutes to an hour. I mean, it's just really a tremendous finish, I thought.
Thank you very much, Shane. Great stuff as always. Great story on the McIntyre part, the angle with him. Appreciate your time today.
It's always fun. Thank you so much, guys.
Shane Ryan with us, Golf Digest with us on 360.